Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. We've got a super special guest this week. This is Teresa. Teresa, I'm going to say your name properly, hopefully. Teresa Heath Waring.
Correct. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. First time. Good. I should have checked before, but I didn't. So I'm doing it live instead.
Oh,
Welcome. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
my pleasure.
Somebody who's really active in the group, someone who's I'm considered a really good friend now, is Jane Billum, who you're working with. So thank you, Jane, for connecting us together. I'm really excited about chatting with you and sharing what you've achieved and how you can help others in our position, business owners in our position, to grow in a really safe and secure way. So tell us a little bit about what you offer and what you do.
So, I am a business and mindset coach, but my background is marketing. I did a degree in it about 20 years
Yeah.
ago. Let's not think about that. And then I spent 10 years working for other businesses. So I was employed, I was a good employee. I
Mm.
liked being an employee. I was head of corporate marketing for Land Rover, right the way down to businesses where I had to do it all. So I was the graphic designer, the writer, the everything else. Um, and I loved it. And I loved working for other people, never had the thought or intention at all to grow my own business or start my own business. And then I joke that I went through an early midlife crisis and I ended up as a single parent to a 3, 4 year old and suddenly started to relook at things and think, actually, I need something different in my life. And I guess anybody who's had children or got children that age, she was going to school and obviously being a single parent, I was like, how am I going to juggle this? How am I going to
Mm.
manage this? And thought, oh, I know, I'll start my own business like some crazy person. Um, and well, there's a lot to be said about that whole process, but
Yeah.
basically, I went from being a marketing consultant to a marketing agency where we had a team that had a done for you thing. So you would come to us, we would sort your website out or do your social media or create a brochure or whatever it might be. And then it got to the point where I discovered the online world. And I
Mm.
suddenly was like, I really like the look of this online world. I really like the thought of I can help people anywhere. Um, and I liked the fact of I could make a difference to those smaller businesses. I worked for some huge businesses, and in fact, I saw one of them just the other day, which is so funny. And it was an estate agent I worked with. And he finally said to me the other day, I'm finally doing the things you told me to do 8 years ago. Right. And that was the problem. I would tell him to do something. He'd go, yeah, yeah, we'll think about that. We'll do, because of course it was it's like you're trying to turn a tide with a big company.
Mm.
Whereas with a small business, I know I can say one thing and they can make one change and they can make a big difference. So
Mm.
for me, the online world was just really kind of where I wanted to be. So I built my speaking. I am now a speaker, and I basically have an online business where I have two memberships or memberships of two levels. And in those memberships, I coach people, I teach people, we do mindset. In fact, we've got mindset call tomorrow about your personal SWOT and then how you take that into your marketing. And I also do one-to-one coaching as well.
Mm.
So I basically all day, every day, talk to small business owners, help them with their businesses, help them grow, help them with their mindset. And I love it.
So we something that comes up a lot in the group, and if I do Q&As with other say business owners, usually tuition business owners,
Mm-hmm.
the word mindset comes up a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you define mindset? What's your take on that?
So interestingly enough, obviously, I came from marketing. So I came from the strategy side.
Yeah.
So when I started my own business, I thought, well, this is easy because
Mm.
I do this for a living. Like,
Yeah.
I know how to market myself. Oh, yeah, how wrong I could have been. Because what I didn't take into account was I'm managing myself. And if I don't show up, if I get scared, if I get imposter syndrome, if I'm not motivated, if I can't see the value in what I give, or a client says no to you, or you have a terrible day, or you just
Mm.
wake up and you don't feel like it, I am my own worst enemy. And
Mm.
that all came down to mindset. It
Mm.
all came down to knowing myself, understanding myself. And the way I describe mindset now is slowing things right down so that you can notice them, so you can change them. Because we do so much of this stuff subliminally without even realizing we're doing
Mm.
it. Because we've learned these things over years and years and years of becoming a grown-up. We have put these tools in our tool belt, helpful or not, but they have been helpful to us at some point because they've come in as a strategy. So like getting your glass of wine at the end of the day, or like eating food that isn't great for you, that's a strategy. That's helping us in a way. And we've created all these tools. And now what we're trying to do with mindset is go, okay, we know we've got this tool, but is it the most useful thing to do? Is it really useful when you have a hard day to spend the next day in bed with a bottle of gin? Probably not. So let's rethink that strategy. So for me, that was the point in which my business and I changed. So I started off and I was like, yeah, I can do marketing. I'm doing this thing. I was doing all the hustle thing that everyone talked about, and I was getting work and money was coming in, but I was like, it was like a flipping roller coaster. And don't get me wrong, just because I've worked on my mindset does not mean that my life is one long, lovely, smooth ride, not in the slightest, but the peaks and troughs are not as deep as they had been, and I can come out of them way quicker. So things will go wrong, but I have tools I can deal with them at super speed and bring myself up to where I need to be. And I realized this mindset thing was so strong, and it must have been probably within a year or two. I've had my business almost 10 years, and within a year or two of having my business, then I started to get my own coach. Then I started to do all the personal development stuff. And then last year, so in 2002, we're in 3, in 2002 I spent the year doing a coaching qualification because I knew that a lot of what I did was coaching, and I didn't want to be one of those other people on the internet, which there are lots of them, who go, yeah, I'm an expert in this, and they have nothing behind the facade they show online. So I did a whole year's worth of coaching qualification, and now it is integral to everything I do, because I could give you the best strategy in the world, and you know, I know these strategies is, you know, this is what I do day in, day out. But if you don't have the confidence to do it, or if you're letting your imposter kick in and not do those things, then it's absolutely pointless.
So I posed this question in the group this week, where it was like, what would it take for somebody to start working on that personal development, or what's stopping you from taking that next step? Because often we can in business, we can go things alone, and often it'll be slow, and we can make things work, but we might be like driving our business forward, but with the handbrake on, is what I used to call it. In the first couple of years of my business, that is what I felt like. I was like, I know I can do this thing, and there's people that could really benefit, but I can't seem to find them. And there's a big block in my business, which was me. And then I did the first course, which was like the first time I'd ever invested in that personal development in myself, and then it becomes addictive. Like once you've done it once and you realize, and I do fall down the side of the fence where I did about 25% of what was actually told to do. And actually what I realized I missed was accountability. Like while the course was going on and we were sort of taking through the task and what to do and taking an idea out to market, it was okay. But then when it all finished and everyone went their separate ways at the end, I was still kind of left in limbo, like being my own boss and working from home, where I need to do the washing up and the washing, and putting the washing out. Like 3 or 4 hours was just done doing nothing really, looking back. And it wasn't until I was like, well, what worked? Well, it worked being online a couple of times a week, talking to like-minded people. It worked having an expert who I could send a message to. I could somebody there to put a rocket up my arse if I really needed it, because I was just there, like, you know, twiddling my thumbs. And then I started thinking about the community aspect of that. And when I posed this question, it was really interesting, because there are so many, like, probably in the same way, like you might have been a little, I know from my perspective, I was a little bit, I suppose, skeptical, because you want to see that credibility, don't you? There's something. So if, for example, in the second thing I invested in, someone said, they said, who do you help? That classic, like, who do you help? Who's your ideal audience? And the guy stood up and said, I help people invest in stock markets and trade and those kind of things. And the first thing the coach said was, do you trade? Do you do this thing? And the guy was like, well, yeah, I've dabbled. It's like, how can you go out? No, how can you go out and teach people something that you're not doing yourself? Like if you don't have the success behind it, like why are you then moving down this road? Obviously, because it's the kind of like I suppose it's fashionable to do, and then potentially quite lucrative.
Yeah.
But often for one time, because once you get found out, that's it, it's gone.
And that's the truth. I have seen people come and go in my industry. I've seen people who have bought a course on how to create a course from a very well-established person who is excellent at it. They have then taken that course, learned the stuff, and then they've tried to do the same thing. And it's like, no, that's not your zone of genius. I took my zone of genius of marketing that I had done for all these years, and I taught on that. Then as I grew my business and I learned more, I then taught more about business. And then finally, as the mindset thing kicked in and the coaching thing kicked in, so I now talk about those three things, but I have lived and learned experience of all of those three things. And I practice them all like by the minute. So I have two coaches currently, one who's very strategic and accountability, and one who is much more me and embodiment and life almost. I also have a therapist that I work with. I have a team that I work, like I do all the things that I tell other people to do, because I know I couldn't have got to where I've got without doing those things. And sometimes it can feel a little bit like, and especially in the online industry, it's almost like the pyramid selling. Like I pay them to learn from them, and then you pay me to learn from. And it does feel a bit like that. But I feel like the ones who really like me, like you, that eat, sleep, breathe this stuff, that literally this is our day-to-day thing. We're the ones who are, I'm still going to be doing this in 10 years time, 20 years time. My husband talks about my retirement plan. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I will. Like, I know, like I want to slow down at some point, but I love what I do. So I think it's really easy to see people come and go, but having that credibility of, no, I'm still here doing the same thing. And it's funny, like one of the very first lives I ever did on Facebook came up in my memories of a little while back, and it was a live where I was talking about a lead magnet, what a lead magnet is and why you need one. And that week on the podcast, literally 8 years later, was talking about a similar thing. And it's like, I love that. I love that I am consistent. There are people who won't come into my world for a very long time that will hear me on something like a podcast or watch me speak on a stage. In fact, that's how Jane found me. I was speaking on a stage, and then will watch me quietly without me even knowing they exist. And then they'll appear in my world. And it's only the people that are consistently showing up doing the thing because it's what they love and they are eat, sleeping and breathing it that will then be around long enough to get those customers.
What I love is that in an 8-year window, you're still talking about the same stuff. I something which I teach or I don't really teach it. I just share it in my group and in the course and other things that are workshops, those kind of things, is that the content creation for people coming out of education, we're so, I don't know, bogged down with other stuff that's going on often in the mind, that we go, I can't come up with content. I can't come up with 365 new pieces of content, like, because I need to do one a day. You don't put all this pressure on ourselves. It's like, you don't need to do one new piece a day. Actually, there's new people coming in that needs to see the stuff you did 4 months ago. Keep repurposing and retweaking it. And once you get into this zone, like, first of all, like, once you're giving yourself the headspace outside of whatever you're leaving behind, you'll be surprised how many ideas you have. But also you just repurpose and retweak and
and that's the truth. They're doing this job, so they're creating content every single day. I just was speaking to someone earlier this morning that I'm working with, and she's really struggling with emails, and I literally went down her social media and I went, that's an email. Like, what you've written there is an email. Like, and who cares if you put the same thing on an email as you put on a social media post, as you put into a Facebook group? It doesn't matter, because not everyone's going to see everything. And if they do, how many times do we see an advert? Like, how long actually has Coca-Cola put their Christmas advert out? The holidays are coming.
I mean, I was little. So, I was small. We're going back a long time, aren't we?
And yet they bring it out every single year.
Yeah.
They're not worried that people are like, oh, we've seen this ad already. We're so tired of this. And it's now almost become an institution of like, oh, that advert's on, you know.
Yeah.
So actually, it doesn't matter if people are going to see it. So the content, it is really interesting because content is something that really bogs people down.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the minute you can sit with someone and I can go, tell me what you do. And then they tell me what they do. And then I go and tell me how that works. And I'm like, everything you just said then was content.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that whole like getting, I think some of that's headspace, and I think the whole thing around content is it can be a bit of a minefield in that you kind of might. I love writing things down, so I've got like around my room I have those. Do you know like the magic whiteboard stuff? The ones
that like static sit to the wall.
Like, they're my favorite thing. I love them now because I'm like, right, an idea, like get one of those out, and then that becomes part of the plan. And then I know that, and I'll repurpose things from that. So I'll say something, I'll put tuition at the center of it. Let's say like I do a big push towards January. So I give a big lead time. I'm like, what is it that parents would want to hear about? What did I do this time last year that I can just pick up and use again? Maybe change the wording slightly or put a different image, or maybe do a video instead this time, whatever it may be. But that all goes on a big whiteboard, mind map it out, done. And usually 10 minutes in, 5 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have been able to generate the same ideas. I would have been left there scratching my head. Some of that's experience, obviously, of doing it for a long time. But it's like leaving something behind and then pushing into something new, which is kind of a bit of a theme at the moment. Over the last couple of weeks, people I've connected with has been about the whole idea of change and identity and anything that's sticky around that. And I think a lot of it is how the narrative, the kind of things that you're saying to yourself and what other people are telling you around you, and how to guard from that. I've got a tutor that's just started working with me. I've been here for a couple of months, and his growth here is fine because there's a number of hours I can give him, but outside of here, he's really struggling. But in his world, his partner's telling him, look, I thought you was going to be earning full-time money by now. And it's like, it's only been like 7 weeks.
Oh my God.
And I know. And then his dad's like, well, his dad's a builder. When I became self-employed, I started earning more money instantly. I was like, it was different industry. And so he's like, oh my God, I feel under all this pressure. And I was like, just hold your nerve, because long-term, you're going to be able, because then his drive is like, I just want to prove them wrong. I was like, you probably will.
And good. Take that drive. And
but it will be in a year's time. You're not going to be able to do it before Christmas, but we'll get there. It will happen. And holding that, I suppose the headspace is a sacred thing, and being really careful about what you allow. The allowing is really important.
And that's the hard thing, especially with people that they love, especially people who are in their world. And I remember exactly the same thing happened to me. I started my business and people thought I was mad. Like, because I'd literally just got a divorce from my husband. I'd got a mortgage that I had to pay for, a car that I had to pay for, a daughter that was getting childcare all around the school stuff. And then I made the crazy decision to put her in private school. Like, what the hell was I thinking? People literally thought I was insane. The private one for lots of other reasons. But anyway, but like I used that fire. My sister turned around to me and said, well, if it doesn't work, you can get another job, can't you? And I hadn't even started. Like, give me a chance to fail. And I'm still sat here doing it almost 10 years later. And it's like, do you know what? Take that and run with it. Like I have, and I won't swear on the podcast, but I have what we call, my therapist affectionately calls an F you, Teresa. Right. So if someone says, Teresa, you can't do this, she jumps up and she's like, you want to bet? And she does it. And sometimes that's very destructive. But in that case, it was like, I'm going to show you. But it's super hard. And the other thing is that with your example, which is such a good and perfect example of everyone in business, is that they are seeing people who are way ahead of them in this curve. They are seeing people, but also they're only seeing the highlights. They are seeing no one's going to go online and go, got no clients this week, just lost 3, feel absolutely gutted, don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. People aren't doing that. So of course they're looking at everyone else going, I'm doing something wrong here. And what they need and what you can provide and what I provide. And I did it just this morning when someone told me what their sales figures were for something. And they were like, it's not good, is it? And I went, it's 20%. That's flipping amazing. And they didn't realize. And with you saying, no, you are exactly where you're meant to be right now. And it is going to come. You just need to be patient. And that's okay. People don't get this overnight, but you don't see that story. So I think the more that we can educate people to go, well, one, have conversations with real people in real businesses. And two, that this isn't just you're not going to get it overnight. This isn't just going to happen in a one and great, go work from a beach anytime you want.
That's pretty much the analogy I always say with stuff that I'm creating. I'm like, this is going to be really good, but it's not going to allow me to put my feet up at the beach in the Bahamas, right? That's like an end goal somewhere, hopefully will lead me to that path. Although I don't really like the heat, so I don't know yet. I don't know what where I'm going to go. But it's all the journey. We did a live inside the group on Friday, and we were talking about what advice would we give to someone just starting out, what 2 pieces of advice. And I only gave one, and Sharon, who is a tutor who's got the 7-figure business, she gave a couple of pieces, and mine was like enjoying the bit in between stages. Like, you have an idea and then it goes to market, and often we don't like that bit in the middle where you've got to create your post, you've got to find out who your ideal client is, you've got to do the research, you've got to do your SWOT analysis, you've got to do all those little bits. If you can enjoy those little bits, you're going to have such a fun time running a business. If you don't like those bits, it's going to feel quite tough. And I feel like this in my private life as well. We went on holiday a few weeks ago with the family, and it was the bit in between, like the excursions, that I loved the best, because it was chilling out around the pool or playing a game of Uno or doing something silly that was just biding the time. But they are the bits that I love the most now, whereas before I would be like scratching at the post going, I want to get out onto the quad bike, and I want to go up the mountains, I want to go and do this. It's I think you said it at the beginning, it's just slowing things down a little bit and appreciating that these things are worthwhile to do, because it's going to grow your business, but also enjoy them, and it's your learning experience along the way.
And I think you're right. And so, like, often we say, one of the mindset sessions I do in the club is we talk about appreciating all the steps that you've taken and seeing how far you've come. Because one thing that we are not very good at doing as business owners is celebrating ourselves. We so quickly get to one thing and we want to move on to the next one, or we get to one thing and go, yeah, well, that was all right, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And actually what we don't do is go, where did I start? Where am I today? And what an achievement that is. And the truth is, if you're listening to this and you started your business, you already are in a very small percentage of amazing people, because there are a ton of people out there who are moaning like hell about the job they're in, hate their life, are miserable, and yet they don't have the guts to do the thing that you've done. And maybe you're sat there thinking, oh, I'm one of those people and I've not yet got the guts. But the fact that you're even listening to it and even considering it, you are 10 steps ahead of those people. So it's about celebrating that and about going, I'm amazing, well done me, right, on to the next challenge.
Yeah. Teresa, before you started your business, did you also consume that type of content, like through books or through going to conferences or lectures or anything like that?
Do you know what? I'd love to say yes, but I didn't, because starting my business was such a shock to me. Because it happened so suddenly. So actually what happened was, I decided I needed to leave the job I was in. I had outgrown it. I knew I was worth more money. I knew I was worth I was head of marketing, but I wanted a director role. And so I decided I'm really good at what I do. I'd built a real base where I lived and I was well respected in marketing. So I actually decided to hand my notice and give them 8 weeks notice to get another job. And a no job came. And basically, because I forgot that I was fairly expensive resource. I live in Shropshire, so I'm not like, in a very rural part. So it's not like I'm sat in the middle of Birmingham with businesses all around me or anything. And it got to the point, I was about 4 weeks in my notice, and I thought, holy crap, what am I going to do? Like, I might actually have to rethink this. Being the stubborn person that I was, I didn't want to then go, can I stay, please? And by that point, too much had gone under the bridge. So I thought about, what if I could do this for myself? And it was like, as the thought entered my head, it also entered my boss's head, and she asked me to leave. I had 1 week to set up my business. I had a month's worth of salary. that was owed to me. I had no savings, no husband, no rich parents. I had parents who weren't rich, no other money coming through the door. Literally,
Whoa.
and I had to earn £1,500 every month just to keep the roof over our head, the car running, and my daughter in childcare. And I had no choice. And that like was the biggest and steepest learning curve I've ever done in my life. So interestingly enough, when I started my business, I never gave any of the how to be a business owner, how to manage my mindset, what being an entrepreneur looks like, what business, the stuff I talk about now, business goals and strategy, and never thought anything of that. Literally was like fight, 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 fight.
Yeah.
And then I got to about a year and a half in, and I was exhausted and I hated what I'd created. And I finally slowed down enough to breathe, because by then I was earning money and good money and more than I was earning through my business, my job, which was amazing. But I'd created a monster that I didn't like. And then that's when I started to look at things. And actually, I had got together with my new husband, who we weren't married at that point, and we were getting to the point where we were thinking about moving in together. We were like building a life together, and I was earning and I was bringing good money to the party. And I eventually had to say to him, can I sack my clients and start my business again? And basically, that's kind of what I did. And I kept like 2 or 3 clients that were super easy, like really good money. And I had someone who was doing their work and they never wanted much of my time. And I'd started to build the online thing. I'd started to get picked up for speaking, but I was getting comments from clients that were like, well, you're never in the country. When we want to speak to you, you're not here. And jokingly being like, oh, you're getting too good for us now. And the truth was, it wasn't that I was getting too good for them. It was that I was going in a different direction and my business was not the business I set up. So that's the point. So I did it again. And having gone through a divorce and financially become, independent, I always gave my half into my now marriage. And I had to still keep doing that. So I still had a bit of that pressure, even though I knew if a month went by and I couldn't, he could step in. But I think there was an element of like, I literally had no choice. I had to earn money. But like I said, I fought and fought and fought and it worked, but it wasn't sustainable. And that's when I did. And I would say probably about 6 months into the business, I started learning. Then about a year and a half, I started going, yeah, I probably need to like rethink this. And then that's when it all really started to kick in, when I paid huge amounts of money for coaches, when I would go to the States 4 or 5 times a year to conferences. Like it would cost me a fortune.
Wow.
But it was worth it because, one, I was doing stuff that no one else in the UK was doing. I was being seen these places. I made all these phenomenal connections, which I still have to this day. And it accelerated me in my business because I fully stepped out of my comfort zone. Like the money thing was terrifying, but it made the world a difference.
There was a bit in there you was talking about that changing your business over time, and at a lower level, I'm gonna suggest for a lot of us tutors or small businesses, like how. This is a question that gets I get asked this a lot. It's like, how do you know? Like, I get people who message me and go, I've got all these ideas, Rich. I don't know which ones to prioritize, and I'm currently doing this, and that feels okay, but I'd like to be focusing on any number of these 10 things. And I'm like, whoa, that's a lot. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to prioritize that at the moment, except that which one would give you the most joy, which one would provide the most value. They're usually the 2 things I come down to. I tend to try and point people towards, and I can't choose that for them. They have to work that out for themselves. How do you know when it's time? What are the time to kind of like pivot or change direction? What are the telltale signs?
Well, the first thing is you've got to have given it a go. It is so easy to do something and go, yeah, that didn't work. Let's try something different. And the truth is, when you look at people who are in your industry or like the gurus of this world, like, let's go back to the Coca-Cola advert. They've been doing it over and over and over and over. So I think we have to be super realistic with ourselves and say, do I want to pivot because actually I had something not go so well, and now I've just gone, well, that doesn't work, and I'm basically throwing my toys out the
Being
pram,
flippant, yeah.
which we will and we do, including myself. Or can I honestly, hand on heart, say I have tried everything that I can do, and I can tell you to this day there has not been one single thing that I can say that for. Not one thing that I've done that I can honestly say I have done everything I can do. There's always something else I could have done. But so I think that's the first thing, that you have to be super honest with yourselves of, have I given it my all? And did I get to the point, and I see this all the time, where they are just about to be amazing and they scare themselves back off and they sabotage themselves. I see it constantly. And then you have to do some deep work and go, well, what would be the problem if I became successful? Like, and sometimes, and I'm not a therapist.
That's such a good question, by the way.
But it's one that we need to ask ourselves, because we think when you do all the mindset stuff, like what happens is you it's almost like you clear it all out and you get it all out on the table. And what's happening with self-sabotage often is we are doing something that often we don't realize we're doing. So we are doing it without even thinking. We think it's something else. And then when I slow people down and go, that's weird, you did that again, that's funny, are you noticing you're doing that? Then they immediately go, oh, I don't know why I do it, it's so annoying. No. There is a really good reason you're doing it. There is something in you somewhere very small that's saying, I don't want to succeed because if I succeed, this. Okay. And that could be, if I succeed. So I grew up with parents who have terrible money mindset. So my mum used to say the phrase fur coat and no knickers. Like, I don't know whether you've heard that phrase. I mean, it's just awful. But like,
I've never heard that one.
Well, luckily I don't hear it very often, but that was something my mum used to say. And basically money was bad. People who have it are horrible. People are greedy. People are this. And that has been like instilled into me as a child my entire life. So when it got to the point where I could start earning money, I might self-sabotage and go, oh, well, I would put that out again, but it's not going to work, or it probably isn't good, or not go all in to make that thing happen, because deep down somewhere in me, I think it's bad to earn money. So I'm going to stop myself earning money. But what I'm trying to do, the self-sabotage is trying to protect me, because I don't want to be seen like that. I don't want to be seen as greedy and horrible. And so my subconscious, my brain is trying to keep me safe. But then what I can do is I've slowed it all down. And this is the kind of stuff we work through with coaching people. Once we've identified it, we then go, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate you, brain, for trying to keep me safe. But what would I do about it? And how would I show up? And can I find examples of other people who have got what I'm trying to get and who are not all evil or all this? And it's about doing that work. And then you do it again and you do it again, because it never stops. Like you will sabotage in some other place. Oh, okay, I recognize this. I've done this before. What does this mean? And then how do I get over it? So for me, it's about kind of identifying if that's what you're doing, because that could be the thing. And sometimes you can't identify that. Sometimes you need someone like me or you to go, hang on a minute, like, let's just, what did you just say there? But when you are ready, I think, so I've been doing some research calls with people for about a new service I'm going to be doing. And one of the questions I've asked them is, what's your dream? So I deal with people who have online businesses, but often they have a business alongside it. So it's a bit like in the tutoring business, that you're still a tutor, but you want to create this other business.
Yeah.
But you need the money from the tutoring, but you need the time to put in the online stuff or the teaching or the coaching. So I asked them, well, what's the dream that you see? So if I said that to you and you said, no, I want to eventually get rid of my tutoring students. I eventually don't want to do that full time, or I eventually don't want to have that many, and I just want one, and I want to handpick that one, or whatever it is. And I want the business to be this. Well, that's where our focus has got to be. So you need to think forward. You need to dream and go, what do I want this to look like? And if that's what you want it to look like, that's where we're going to have to put the work. And if that means, and we have to take risks. And I think sometimes we think as small business owners that we, like we get terrified if we have any debt. We get terrified if we are, taking a risk with something, or if we haven't got loads of money in the bank. Do you think these big, massive businesses have ever got into business without taking a risk? Not in a million years.
Do you know this is something which myself and Jane share? Like, I think one of the first times I spoke to Jane, I was like, "Oh, have you read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight?" And and it's such an incredible story, but there's one bit in there that absolutely blows my mind. I've read it a few times. This is the guy who created Nike.
Mm-hmm.
He ran his business, even when it was turning over like $22 million a month. His bank account and the business bank account still went back to zero every single month.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's crazy to think of a business like that. And even when it's really well known and established around the world.
Yeah.
And it was just gone because this is how much it cost to run a business. If he wanted to grow, he had to keep investing it back in. And oh my God, how risky. And there's times he was like waiting for an invoice to drop so he could pay his staff. And like, you imagine the sweat and the worry.
And it's just, he just did it on a much bigger scale. Like, you know, and that's the thing. We can't, when you see someone who you look up to or aspire into your industry, the chances are that's what they've done. They've taken the risk. They put themselves out there. And if you want to make a move, if you want to change and you have slowed yourself down, you've checked that you're not just running away from something because it got hard, or suddenly you're scared because it actually looks like it might be successful. And actually you go, yeah, that's cool over there. I just don't want to do that anymore. And I can see something else. You're going to have to take a risk at some point. I couldn't have built this business while I still had the other business. I would still be sat doing the same thing, saying to people, oh no, I'm going to do this. Oh no, I'm going to do this. And it was only when I said, I'm actually going to sack clients. And that got me scared again. And that got me kind of driven again as to go, all right, I've got to put my money where my mouth is now. And then I brought on a coach, and this coach was, well, I don't mind saying, I've said before, but for 6 months, she was £15,000.
Wow.
And it scared the living bejesus out of me. Like, honestly terrified me. But did I work? Boy, I worked my backside off. And she changed my life. I'm not even kidding. I can honestly say, and she's still my coach to this day. And this was like 6 years ago, I think we started, or she's one of my coaches this day. But like, you know,
a long time to stay with a coach, actually, because often you move on, don't you?
That time. Yeah. And I couldn't be without her. I love her, and she's one of my best friends now. Like, you know, it's amazing. But I took a massive risk. But because I took that risk, sometimes we've got to have skin in the game. And I'm not saying I'm very risk averse. It doesn't sound like it, but I am. And I would never, if someone came to me and said, I want to do one-to-one coaching, but I'm gonna have to remortgage my house, I'd go, no, I love chatting with you, but no, like, we're not going there. I don't want people to put themselves at bad risk, but you've got to make yourself feel uncomfortable.
There's something in here, Teresa. There was a comment. This is a long time ago now. It's probably 8 or 9 months ago. I can't remember what the context of the post was, but it was something on the lines of, I think I'd given advice about this, like get skin in the game, basically, because it creates tension in your life. Tension creates energy, emotion, and all those kind of things that we need. And someone put underneath like, yeah, but you can get all this stuff for free. And I was like, you can definitely go and get all this stuff for free without a doubt. But you're going to put the work in when you've got no investment. And I don't just mean money, I mean emotionally. When I did my first course, it was £1,000 for like, I think it was 12 weeks. I didn't have £1,000. No. I didn't have it, but I had to make it work because I knew it. The second one, similar to you, is the longer term. It cost me about £12,000. It was about, £1,000 a month, just over. I wasn't making enough money to pay it. But I knew I needed it. And I didn't even check in. Usually I check in with my other half, but I didn't. I came home and I was like, I've done this thing. And can we just tighten our belts a little bit? And can we just maybe, and the conversation that immediately was, what the hell have you done? Are you sure? And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Exactly the same conversation with my husband many times. But like you said, I think, and even the places I've spent money, believe me, and regretted it, right? A group program, and the group was so big that this expert, I had no time with them. They didn't understand me. They didn't understand my business. And quite honestly, the advice he was giving out was ridiculous. But I learned so much from that. And yes, am I a little bit annoyed? Maybe I spent that money? Yeah, a little bit. But actually, I still got a ton of stuff from it, even if it was just not the way to be. And I think for me, any spending money where, and people are right. Okay, there's nothing I teach, nothing you teach that you can't find online for free. However, what we do, and the difference is, I take you as a person and listen to you and understand who you're talking to. And I tailor all that advice to you. That's the thing they can't do. I had someone on for these research calls that I'm doing, and her membership is £9 a month, right? Well, if she took that to any expert, we would immediately go, what the hell?
Yeah.
£9 a month? Are you having a laugh? Like that is way too cheap for what she offers. And it is. However, the people she's serving would not pay much more than that. And therefore, the strategy for her has to change. The strategy isn't we work on this and you charge this, because she'll never get a client. We work on numbers. So actually your strategy is all about getting people through the door, and how can we get more people through the door? So yes, I can find everything online for free. I can coach myself. I can teach myself. I inhale books like they're going out of fashion. However, how do I take all that I've learned, realize the stuff that is worth keeping and the stuff that's absolutely pointless, because there's a lot of that out there, and realize what will work for me and who I am? Again, podcasts are brilliant. I'm a huge fan. They're not for everybody. Some people should not and cannot do a podcast. Some people should not show their face on video. They don't have the charisma for it. Like, and it sounds really harsh, but it's like, unless you work with someone who knows you and will get to know you, you can get that information for free, but it's not going to get you very far.
It's kind of that was one of the reasons why I asked you the question before, like, did you do any of this work like while you were still in employment? Was it on the cards? Because for me, I did a business degree, and so I had that interest anyway. So every book I bought was around self-help or business or marketing, and I'd read the book. But it'd be really good to do business. And the book would, 3-5 minutes that I'd forget about it. And then I'd do the next book and I'd get really motivated. And until the point I qualified as a teacher, and we're sat in the staff room with some friends, and I'm feeling down, a couple of other people like feeling the pressure. And I was like, oh my God, there must be a better way of earning 30 grand a year. Than doing what we're doing right now. There must be. And then it got me, because I hadn't read for a couple of years. I started picking up books again, but the same thing. And this is the problem with, and that books aren't free, but there's still an element of I'm reading this and I'm consuming it, but if I'm not taking action, if I'm not applying this somewhere in my life, 100%. It's just wasted, isn't it? And we can have that moment of feeling really motivated and inspired, but what's the purpose of it? And
you said earlier about accountability, sorry, but you said about, and that is the key thing that I can provide people that I won't forget. And like, they will say to me, oh yeah, I need to do that. And I'll go, okay, cool. When are you doing that by?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, like wrapped in a headlight. And it's like, well, no, you just said you need to do it. So let's do it. Like, and I will support you 100% of the way. And I will give you any tools that you need. And I have probably done it 20 times over, but I can't do it for you, but I can absolutely hold your hand and make sure that you're supported in doing it, but you have to do it. And that's the truth. If we don't have, and that's why I have a second coach about the accountability and from the business point of view, because I need it. Like, and this is the thing, you don't get ever to a point in your business where you're like, I'm earning this, or I've done this amount of work, or I'm at this stage and now I don't need to do it. No.
Which was mind-blowing for me. So the course I was telling about, that was a mastermind. It was a year 12-month mastermind. The first time I walked into the room, I was like covered in imposter syndrome, head to toe, sat down at the back, like not going to say anything. I had a business that was earning about £1,500 a month. And when people started talking and networking, there was two guys that running an online store. They were doing multi-six figures every month. And I was like, why are you even here? If you're doing that, I don't understand. I didn't understand at the beginning. But by the end of that year, I was like, oh my God, I get it. It's 100%. Like I get why there are millionaires sat in that room, because it's ongoing. It never stops. You need to work on it over and over again. And it was a pleasure to share that space with them and just sit in awe and just listen, take notes, and then, apply it.
You want to be in the room where people are ahead of you. I always did that. I always pushed myself way out of my comfort zone to pay to get me into spaces. And I have people now, interesting enough, the ones who, because my membership is not the cheapest. It's like 2,000 for the year, just over 2,000 for the year, which in all honesty is cheap, but you know,
Yeah.
for a membership and what people view
Yeah.
as a membership, that is expensive. But like those people who spend that money, who the ones who go, God, I'm scared about this because they've never spent it on them before, and they feel like they've got to justify it to themselves and other people, and how indulgent does that look? And what do you mean? What do they do for you? And it still feels like a very strange world that we're in. But those are the ones who show up and do the work. And they're the ones, in fact, I have one who deals with children. She is a dietitian and she worked for the NHS, and she had half her job was NHS and half was her own stuff. And her goal was to leave the NHS. And not only has she left the NHS, she is now earning more money a day than she would bring in a month. A day. She's doing a talk for someone and they're paying her more than she would have been given for a month's salary in the NHS.
That's just incredible, isn't it? It's just
madness. But she pushed herself out of her comfort zone to be in my world. Like, it was an uncomfortable money decision. She showed up and did all the work. When she said, how do I do this? And I told her, she did it. So she's trying to become the go-to person in her industry. So I have a whole framework and a whole course on becoming visible and becoming the go-to person. And she did exactly what I said. She got on 2 top 10 podcasts for her industry, top 10 podcasts, and now has connected with someone else in her industry that has a following of something like, I think it's like 500,000 people, and she's now collaborating with them, like, because she's doing what she's told. She's come into all the mindset stuff. We're working through the mindset stuff. She then goes, okay, cool, and moves on, and it's just brilliant. Because she feels a bit uncomfortable, because she feels a little bit like, okay, I want to earn this money, and she's doing the work. And as much as I'd love nothing more to read a book or listen to a podcast or just attend a webinar and then suddenly wake up the next day and be a millionaire, that would be amazing. Thank you very much. It's not going to happen. Like, we need to do the work.
Yeah.
And be brave.
Teresa, I know that you've got to go, so let's wrap it up. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Your time. There's so many. I'm going to rewatch it because there's so many things I want to take away from this as well. So I know others will. So if you're listening to this and you've got anything from it, please let us know. And Teresa, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you do?
So the advantage of having a slightly unusual name is you can literally Google me and find me. So
first on Google, actually.
That's good to know. But I hang out mostly on Instagram. That's my favorite, or LinkedIn. I'm on there too. And you can come and check out my podcast, Your Dream Business Podcast, or just come along to teresaheathwareing.com and say hi. I'd love to hear from you.
Great. Lovely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Richard. Thank you for having me.